All right, we'll call this meeting to order.
You may as well. Yeah, that's enough.
Just texted Zeta. I mean, there's no one else we're expecting, so Zeta. And I can catch her up if she's not here. We don't have to hold it up.
All right, go ahead.
For her. So, thanks everybody for coming to the Finance Committee meeting. Monday, September 18, 3:30, to discuss the status of the Tapley building owned by on next door to our operations center here. Talk about the lease and what our move is before tonight's meeting or at tonight's meeting, etc. So Tom and Chris, you guys have been the main guys working on it. Seth is here. I talked to Seth a couple times since we met on Thursday. He agreed to come. He's representing the owner, and Ken Shea is here, and Mike. We needed to have more lawyers and bring this. Yeah. Chris, we're on our own.
Yeah,
we can leave and see if the lawyers can figure it out.
They will figure it out. But it needs to open. It would.
Yeah.
So how many members of the committee do you have?
3. Tracy Whitfield, Zeta, Gohan, and me.
Can we?
Yeah, we can start.
Yeah, we can have a session with just one member. How do we do that?
I don't know about that.
It's been a while since I thought it doesn't have a rule of necessity on here. Yeah, I don't think we need to apply. How do we get into executive session with one?
You couldn't take any official action.
You can get it.
You need a vote to go into executive session.
Yeah. Somebody's got a motion and second, and we have a single member. That's sort of the problem. So, is there any word to go on that she can come in?
She will.
If she doesn't show up, we can adjourn the meeting and talk without a quorum of the committee about the matter before the committee, because it's not a meeting law violation.
Well, I mean, at this point, I think the wise thing to do is to have Seth discuss what he's kind of come here to discuss, and then hopefully by the time that presentation is finished, we do have a quorum, so kind of we do have a good executive session briefing. I think you're right. That's probably the only way to handle it. And then at that point, we could always adjourn. We don't have a quorum there. We'd probably be under open law purposes. So why don't we just have Attorney Stratton kind of, give the presentation that he's here to discuss. And I know Director Signal is here to just, he has a screen sharing to be able to give maps and stuff to assist us look at the property, things like that. So I know, just to kind of tee this up, that the committee had asked for the ownership or council the ownership to kind of be able to participate in the discussion. I think the councilors were uncomfortable not having them at the meetings to kind of discuss some basic things to do with potential eminent domain. It made sense, of course, to have them here. So I know that there's some questions about the potential for different values to the property, and that, there's a tenant on site. That's something that's kind of information that's been sort of very generally discussed, but I know Attorney Stratton's here, so he can answer questions if you have some, and he can certainly give his information from his client as to where he believes it should go.
And the other thing was, there in the meetings you guys had, Chris and Tom, between the 2 committee meetings, we hadn't had anybody in the meeting representing the other side.
And no, we have not had anybody from the ownership here at any subcommittee.
Right. That was the other thing that was on my head about inviting Seth or whomever was right. So I agree with what Thomas said. And Seth, you wanna?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a formal presentation. I just wanted to be here at your request, Tim and Tom, to be able to answer any questions. But I guess I can tee up for the benefit of everyone where I left it with Tom and Tim and Chris in various conversations on behalf of my client. Essentially, if I can step up here, I'll just
be careful. If you touch it, it moves.
Okay. Draw an imaginary line, right here between where it juts off of this corner and here. That's kind of the back, I'll call it, quarter of the property next door. That everything in front of that is subject to a lease with L&W Supply. Everything.
Seth, I'll tell you what. Hold on 1 second, because
you need to draw to you.
No.
There's a document that was attached to the meeting notice that
comes right here.
Yeah.
Just the pain with this Zoom thing, trying to get it so that I can.
Actually, can you pull up on the meeting agenda? There was a PDF that I think actually, I don't know, it doesn't have the language.
Hello, Tracy.
Hey,
you're joining us. We're just, we're at Tapley in the conference room here.
There you go. See, that's it.
Yep.
Just bring you up to speed for a second. Seth is about to, Seth represents the owners of the building next door, which we have had a lease with for quite a while. And they have another lease with someone else. So we're trying to figure out if there's a way to accommodate our needs. Chris Signoli and Tom Moore have been working on this for months. Also Mike Benton, Ken Shea, and myself. So Seth is representing the owner. He's about to talk.
okay, and they so can you give me a little background on what's going on?
You what's that?
Yeah.
Background.
Trace,
okay. Counselor, do you have access to see anything?
Yes, I see like a site.
Yeah, that I just wanted to make sure because I didn't know if you were on a phone or not. Next door to us on Tapley Street is the 90 Tapley Street property. We have been leasing a rear portion of the property, which is about 8/10 of an acre or so, for over 25 years. The area that is kind of shown on the plan, you see a big black square. To the upper and left of it is the area that we have been leasing. We have a scale in there, we have materials, we have calcium tanks, and obviously there's some vehicles there as well. As I mentioned, we've been leasing this for a number of years. A little bit less than 2 years ago, we were notified that the current owner of the property, which used to be the Gorenstein family, who we had a lease with, we were paying approximately $37,000 a year in a lease for the property, and we've been paying it for a number of years at different rates. We were notified by the company at the time, Top Rock Holdings, that they had purchased the property and wanted to enter into a new lease with us. At that time, they did say to us, hey, we're looking at taking some of the property back to use it for a new tenant in the building. At that point, we started working with them of, okay, if you're going to do that, you have to show me how everything is going to work so that my operation can continue. So what we've done over the last year and a half or so is go through 10 or so variable layouts of site plans for the site. And in July of this year, had one that was kind of okay. And I say kind of okay because we were working forward on some terms. After that plan, a new plan came in because the existing tenant required a certain configuration of property that was different than what we had. That new configuration did not allow us to have our operations work the way that we need them to work. And probably 10 plus months ago, we notified the owner that if we could not come to an agreement, our current lease expires at the end of this September. So we've been working forward on two fronts. Number one, trying to find a plan that would work. And if we didn't, we did all of the necessary appraisals, review appraisals, and title work to take the land by eminent domain. When we found out in, I'm going to say the middle of August, that a plan wasn't going to work, probably beginning of August, excuse me, that a plan would not work, we then decided to move forward with the eminent domain process. This item appeared on the council agenda for the 21st, I believe August 21st, but was tabled because there was some concern over coordination with the client. That was tabled. Over the last 2 weeks, we've had 2 subcommittee meetings to discuss this, and this being the third of this meetings, and the attorney for the company next door, I'm still going to call them Top Rock Holdings. I know they've got a couple different names. Seth Stratton is representing them. Seth came on end of May, or excuse me, end of July.
End of August, about a month and
a half ago. So we've been having conversations with Seth throughout, and we've been dealing with a number of entities. So in August, we made the decision to move forward with eminent domain. And eminent domain is what we are, the piece of land that we are taking is the land that we have been leasing and using for the last 25 or so years. We are not looking at taking any additional property than what we are using now. And this third meeting was basically to have Seth involved as a representative of the owner, because we wanted to make sure before obviously we move forward with this that everybody was aware of what was going on. The order of taking is for $450,000. An account is set up with those funds available at this point. And our intent at tonight's meeting is to move forward with the eminent domain process. So that's kind of the background, and the plan that you see there, what is kind of showing the whole area. If I can just change it a little bit. It's in a little bit of a different configuration. There is a smaller area now that is being offered in the lease, and kind of all these squiggly lines that you see are things that are truck turning radiuses for my vehicles to be able to get in and out and do everything that they need to do on a daily basis. And the layout of the property there does not provide us enough room for our vehicles to be able to do what we need. We'd also be losing location for sand and salt piles. We have the salt shed, but there's a number of different impacts. And I'm going to say in the end of July, we provided back to them a list of concerns that we had on this. And that's basically where we are today, is that the layout that is shown is what is proposed to be leased or has been leased to the tenant. And the remainder of the land we've looked at to determine if we can get our work done in there, which I can't for the scale and for materials. So hence the reason we're moving forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tom to correct everything that I said wrong. And then we can have Seth present his stuff as well.
I got nothing to add. I think we should turn it over to the attorney.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr.
Right,
Chair.
Tracy, do you have any questions?
Yeah,
Tracy?
Mr. Chair, I have one question about the 450,000. What account is that sitting in, and where did that come from? And is that the amount that we're proposing paying the owners for the taking?
Yes, we had a lease, well, excuse me, we had an appraisal, a review appraisal, and a title work done that was turned over to everybody probably a month and a half or so ago. Lindsay, you got the account set up so you can answer where those funds are coming from?
Sure, it's set up in a PayGo account right now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Great background information, Chris. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Okay, we'll go over to Seth and have.
So that
Seth
just made my job easier because he's I should be a lawyer. So I think, you know, and I wasn't involved during those discussions. I have no information, nor do I doubt what Chris said around the history of it. The fact of the matter is that where we are today, and this is what I shared with Tom and Chris and Tim, is that the line and Tracy, I'm pointing, yeah, if you can just follow my finger a little bit, Chris, that border there shown on this diagram is the border of the portion of the premises that has been leased to L&W Supply. there were some discussions, and Chris referenced a plan that was okay, that you had generally thought could work. That plan infringed on a portion of what is to me looking at the plan to the right of the border area, which is the area leased to L&W Supply. There were some discussions at the time where the landlord believed that L&W was okay with that. As it turned out, they were not, and have asserted their rights under the lease. And that is when the plan changed more recently to provide some engineering drawings that show the portion to the left of this border being used, which is not encumbered by the lease to L&W. And so where I left it with Tom was that my client's position at this stage is that whatever they are still ready, willing, and able to enter into a lease with the city for a portion that is not already leased to L&W, and whatever layout engineers agree works, if any can work, they are willing to enter into a lease for that portion, but are unable to enter into a lease that infringes on the portion of the real estate already subject to a lease with L&W. And so if there is a layout that works, they're happy to have their engineers continue a dialogue. If there isn't, we're kind of at an impasse, I guess, with respect to what works for the city. The other piece I'll speak to briefly, I can sit down for this, I guess, is that if the city goes forward with the taking, I think one of the key pieces of information that an appraiser did not have, understandably, is that it actually is subject to a lease. And so I think the amount that Chris is referring to for what I presume will be a pro tanto offer will not represent the actual value. It's a 10-year triple net lease with a nationally rated tenant with 2 5-year extensions. I've shared excerpts from the lease with Tom. The average annual rent is approximately $400,000. Whether you apply a 10%, you're going to apply either somewhere between a 10% and 5% cap rate. It'll probably be closer to 5 because it's a national tenant. You're looking at a value somewhere between $4 to $8 million based on this lease. A taking of the property will result in a breach of the lease, and the tenant will have the right to terminate. And based on our discussions, they have said that if the lease portion is the portion, if the taken portion is a portion currently being leased, which goes right into the back of the building, that will render the building unusable with respect to what they plan to do under the lease, and therefore they will exercise their rights to terminate the lease. And so we believe that if the taking does go forward, the cost to the city, and we don't have to get into a debate on how eminent domain damages are calculated, but it's going to be very significant for the city, because it will not just be a portion of the property, but it will likely be a significant, if not all of the value of the breach lease, unless there is an ability to lease it for a different purpose that comes anywhere near that value. So I think our position is that, one, we prefer not to have it taken and have the lease breached, but the value and the appraisal is significantly less than what the actual value of the property is based on, I think, any metric on this lease. And so and so one of the conversations that we've had is, while I understand the city's desire to have status quo and keep the property as is, if there's any way to make, even if it's less than ideal, make the portion behind the lease portion work, it's going to be financially a lot better for everyone. but for the city included. So again, my client remains willing to have a dialogue, and I know there's some history that I wasn't involved in, and on potential concerns about communication, et cetera. But they remain willing to be flexible as they can on that piece. They simply, at this point, can't legally enter into a new lease that infringes on the existing lease.
Okay, Mike?
Can we go into executive session, Mr. Chair?
We need to do that.
I think we might at this point, the next part of the conversation.
Yeah, we sort of inverted how we were going to do this. Yeah. I mean, you know, Attorney Stratton, I'm glad he was able to give the information that he wanted to say to his client. I think it's difficult.
I just have one question for the attorney before executive session, Mr. Chair, if possible.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
How long is that lease for with the company?
10 years with 2 5-year extensions. So
it's 10
years.
So how many years left on the lease? Maybe that's what I'm asking.
Our lease is ending in 2 weeks, but they've already leased that same land to a new company for 20.
Oh, just did it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That's why we're in the jam.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
So we're trying to figure out if there's any land that they still have the rights to here that can still be offered to us, and that Chris can get his operations on that land, or do we do a land taking? That's the predicament we're in.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, Tracy. Yeah. All right. So how do we do that? How do we go?
Well, I think the decision before we go in is just to say, are we going to come back out? The original was supposed to be the beginning, so we're going to talk in the executive session and then reconvene. So, but the purpose is to have Attorney Stratton give his presentation and give information he's going to give. So I don't know. It's up to the body if they want to still come back into the regular session or not. You should decide that before you go into executive. I'll leave it up to the members if they want to essentially say, we're going to have a discussion in executive session and then we're going to end the meeting, or do we want to come back out and potentially ask more questions of Attorney Stratton?
So who would participate in executive session?
It would be the counselors. Ms. Hackett does not need to be on the line for this. It's not something she's worried about. But Councilor Whitfield would want to stay on the Zoom. Yeah. Or enter into the executive session link. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Any perspective on whether we?
And I don't mind sticking around for a little while, coming back in. It's up to you.
Okay. So why don't we do that? And if you won't be in our executive session, so
correct.
So
walk around.
Okay. You'll see Bill Drummond.
So
can we?
That won't be here for the executive session.
Correct. I think that's right. I think we would talk in executive session without.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't think we should go in just yet because I have some other questions that Seth needs to be here for.
Right. So then it may make more sense to have a 10-minute executive session and then bring Attorney Stratton right back in. That's kind of why I was referencing. So I know you must have questions for him.
Yeah.
But I feel like I would like to give the briefing that I have to give a very short snippet, and then we can ask him any questions.
All right.
Does that make sense? Because then we're getting at least the best dialogue we can hear. That's what I'm trying to get.
Okay.
Okay, so then the motion would be to enter into executive session, and I believe the reasoning would be the discussion of the lease value of the real property we're discussing, 9120 Tapley Street, and I believe the chair is declaring that it may have a detrimental effect on the position of the city. Is that what you're declaring, Mr. Chair?
Well, it seems like it could. Yeah.
Feels like that's what you're declaring. You'll have to do it by a roll call vote. So if there's a motion to be made, I think
so I'll make a motion to go to executive session. Tracy, you agree?
Yes.
all right. So you'd say
Second.
I also agree.
so we say aye to no.
And so it's 2-0 to go to executive session. Zeta, I'm in touch with her here on the text, but
Councilor Whitfield, you'll have to record your vote roll call style.
Okay.
So you have to say aye, Tracy.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
I Tracy Whitfield. Agree?
Yeah, for the motion to go into executive session.
all right.
Oh, okay, for the motion to go into executive.
Alan agreed.
All right, so we're gonna go into executive session on the other link.
Okay, we're gonna end this meeting and then you're going to come back after executive session?
Exactly.
Yes, I'm gonna come back. It's gonna be less than 10 minutes. So we'll do
Less.
just 59 to 09. Okay.
Just quickly, Councilor Whitfield, did you get the link for the executive session one?
Let me see.
You got it.
Well, I only see the regular one.
Thank you.
I'll be out at the desk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Seth.
Hold on.
What time did you send it to?
I see one that was sent at 12:27, and it says
there's a second one.
It's at 106. I think it got sent out.
106.
101 something.
I can forward it to you.
I got it. I got it. All
Okay,
right.
I'm gonna end this meeting so you guys can get the other one going. Hold on.
Okay, beautiful.
All right, we're back in open session. Council?
We have, I mean, have you explained it?
Yeah.
I mean, we talked quite a while. Everybody was involved in the conversation. We got Tracy Whitfield join the meeting. She's a member of the finance committee. Zeta was not able to join today. And we have a proposal for you.
Well, yeah, I think the idea is we want to see if there's a way to work out something over the next 30 days or so. And I think from the city's perspective, they're probably going to go ahead and approve an order tonight and hold on to it and put it in the back pocket to have, I think we have 30 days from the day of the order to record it, and they're going to try to see if we can get a plan that works. I know that we're sort of looking back to your engineers at this point. I know that's been the back and forth that we've done already. But I think Chris sort of gone through the rigmarole a few times and not been able to get something that works. Mm-hmm. So, we'll sort of throw it back, fall into their court, see if they can come up with something. We'd be open to doing a lease. We're certainly still open for that. So, I think eminent domain is like the last resort for us, but we're at the 11th hour. So that's, I think, that's what the way they're gonna approach it tonight, I think. And then, kind of have that discussion continue afterwards about where they stand, and if they're willing to go back to the drawing board a little bit. Mm-hmm. Or even, I know discussion with the tenant, I don't know where they'll stand, but maybe that's something that happens too.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think the question, so who is I'm trying to just understand the direction that I give to the client, which is they ask their engineers to come up with I believe this is how it come up with a configuration that works on that parcel that is available. They did. I know there's some concerns with it, but how do we I mean, they could keep coming up with.
I think, Seth, just to interrupt you, they got to come here and we got to sit down with them.
Okay.
They never wanted to do that. Chucker didn't want to do that. Not thinking about that.
I understood. I think the engineers come sit with you. I don't think it's productive.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just an engineer. Yeah,
right. No, I can sit down with them and go through stuff. And, it was whenever I did talk to Mike Gagnon, it was always like, well, they told me this. Yeah. And I'm like, well, it's this. I got no problem doing that. And I told that to you, and I told that to Dennis, and I told that to everybody else. And it was like, never got a chance to do that.
Okay.
And I actually invited them here and said, I'll walk with you for an hour and a half and show you how our operation works.
The problem with your plan is the turn radius doesn't work for the trains.
And it impacts parking, it impacts all sorts of different things. And I'll go through that with
them. Part of the issue, I think, the back and forth, the way the negotiations have gone, it's been sort of like, engineers taking a guess of what he thinks is going to make sense for us, but they're not in the same room. Like, in the same room, make it work. It's the best chance we got to take it.
I agree. And I mean, that's how I think you and I we're all on the same page. So long as if there's the potential that what they're not going to be able to do is get in a room and say, well, if we could take 20 feet of this property, the turning radius would be better. Because, I mean, I guess they could say that, but that's not.
Yeah, the boundary sort of fixed is the way I understand it.
Okay.
That's not a small obstacle. I know it's a major obstacle. So, but again, I have no ability to solve that.
I don't need
frustrated. So I think if the engineers get in the room and agree that it can't be done, and I mean, Chris has made yeoman's effort to try to get it to work, and what he's saying he's having trouble getting anything with it.
Yeah.
So maybe two brains are better than one in that case.
Yeah, no, that so long as I think they'll authorize them to sit down as early as possible to try to come up with a configuration that works. And assuming that we can get there, then there's no issue.
And we sit on the taking until a point with.
We approve the taking tonight.
What I'm saying is
sit on the taking.
We approve it, we sit on it with, I also want to add another thing. That means we're sitting on it past October 1st.
What is that?
We're voting to take it tonight.
Yeah.
We don't register anything because we could go tomorrow, technically.
Order would expire on the 17th of October.
Yeah, so between now and the 17th of October, we have a time to continue negotiations.
Okay.
What I do not want to have happen is October 1st, your tenant or your client says, I don't give it. We're putting a chain around the entire site. So then we go the next day and we would, we want to make sure that everybody's agreeing to stuff.
Yeah, we need at least before that date, or we'll have to proceed with the eminent domain taking and record the court.
There would need to be an extension.
Correct. Well, I think, well, you'll need, if we can come up with a plan, you'll need a lease signed before then. In the interim, what we talked about, and Tom, we didn't get a chance to discuss it further, but we have an understanding and agreement that we're not going to that we have more time. We talked about additional 30 days. I can't enter into a lease amendment to add another month, but I can agree to a forbearance. I mean, I don't think we're going to get there because I don't think we're going to get there in terms of it being an issue, because we're going to work with you, and before the end of September, we're going to either feel like we have something or we don't, right?
Yeah, I think
maybe I'm not being good.
No, I think it's probably right. And it's 12 days until that day would come, and I think in 12 days we should know if there's any possibility.
After we approve the eminent domain taking, what steps do you need to take to have the fee transferred to us?
It's the recording of the order and the notices and the requisite payment.
So you could do it within 48 hours.
It's not, that doesn't take very long. Yeah, it's more of the, how long does it take the engineers to sit down and have that meeting? Right. I assume they could do that in a day.
Yeah.
And kind of get, and if, again, the result of that meeting dictates what happens. If that meeting comes out with a fruitful, plan, then we have a real chance of getting another lease and that work. But if they both come out of the room and go, I don't think it works, then it is what it is, and then we're left with the other option, right? Yep. So, how do you want to, Chris? Do you want to call, or Seth? Do you want to talk to your client before Chris makes that call?
Yeah, I want to. I'll talk to them, tell them what the plan is, tell them that I want to make sure that I want to understand what direction they're giving to the engineers, and make sure that we're on the same page in terms of what the discussion is. But I'm sure that, because I teed this up previously, the idea that getting the engineers, just without you guys getting the room with their engineers, try to figure it out.
Yeah.
And they said, yeah. So
okay,
I'll just confirm that's still the case. But yeah, makes sense, because that should be the focus. And if it doesn't work, work, and I guess.
I mean, we don't have that.
I guess I can listen to be. It's a win-win for me.
I love it.
So I'm sorry, we took a little longer than expecting seconds. No worry about it. That's, I think, where it stands.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
All right, Counselor, if nothing more, probably during the meeting, I know you're gonna.
Well, yeah, 10 minutes. Well, I guess the only thing is, this isn't really a friendly taking that we're voting on tonight. I think everybody in this room, including Tracy, who's not here, now has a really good understanding of what's going on. But there's another 10 people tonight.
Yeah.
And so
I'm bringing some maps with me too.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm getting at though is, based on this, I mean, what does your client do? What do you think they're going to want to do? Are they going to want you to oppose the taking tonight? Or
is it a hearings meeting?
No, it's not a hearings meeting.
So they can't.
That's the last item on the long agenda. But you know.
Doesn't
Yes, I'm
have
trying
to be. Doesn't
I'm
have
not,
to be.
not in charge.
Doesn't
But
have to be.
The last item.
I guess what I'm getting at is if we would like to know in some way, if you could talk to your client before, if you guys are gonna come and oppose it or what you're gonna do, because if you're gonna oppose it, it sort of impacts how ready we are to make this
I mean, we're gonna,
in-depth presentation.
we're in opposition to it. If you're saying, are we gonna oppose it politically as opposed to legally? Is that the question?
You show up tonight and say something.
I don't anticipate doing that. I don't want to double check and make sure we're not waiving any legal rights by doing that. I don't think we are.
Because technically, unless he's asked the question, he doesn't have the opportunity.
Yeah, we haven't been given any legal notice.
Yeah,
It wouldn't be called up to talk in that.
Property owner doesn't get legal notice that we're taking your property.
They do through the process of the meeting itself, but they don't get it in advance like notice. They do it for road projects, Curtis. Like when they're doing the.
we let them know that we are either taking easement, construction easement, whatever, ahead of the meeting. Then, because we can't tell them any money on a typical roadway project, St. James, remember the gentleman, yeah, it was like, he knew because it was part of the agenda.
Right.
Seth knows because we told him and it's part of the agenda.
Right.
They know the number because it's part of the agenda. Do we send it to them ahead of time because you're the person?
Right.
No. On the road projects, they get a notice saying we will be doing this. Here is the meeting date, yada, yada, yada.
Some of the domain is required for advance notice, but not for the city.
Yeah.
So we get in tonight, we could be last, we could be first, and
Try to move it if you want, but.
and we have to say that the landlord's against this, but we really need it. So please let us take it, and we're hopeful that in the next 30 days, we don't have to.
Yeah, this is our safety net. We're trying to get a deal done. We're still trying to get a deal.
Yeah,
we want, right? Yeah.
That's good. Tracy was here. That'll be big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got some boards with me because, you know, I know the Zoom shit doesn't work in council meetings. So I got, you know, the map and shows a couple different layouts and the aerial map as well. So I'll be able to explain that to all the councilors.
So I guess after fleshing it out, it really doesn't matter if you're there to say it or not tonight, because they're opposed no matter what, whether we.
It's not a friendly act. It's not friendly.
Right.
No, so I guess it doesn't really matter if he's there or not, because it's the same story either way. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
the client really shouldn't have there, right? Taking a vote to take the property if they want it there, or that's.
well, I honestly, I knew of this meeting. I didn't know until this meeting that it was on tonight. So. Great, nice to have, especially if it's last on the agenda.
We have Zoom. We have Zoom.
Oh God.
I mean, is there any value to taking it earlier?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot of value. I think it's a subject to not use to discuss it. It's not always in an agenda. It's a little unusual, right?
We can take it under financial.
The other danger is if you get something close, now you're running to 10 o'clock, right? It's not
Right here.
You'll get someone who will say you can't go past 10 o'clock. So,
And it was on an agenda previous. It was on the 21st of August. We were supposed to do it when we got bombs.
I
and
think
the other stuff on that will move fast.
Yeah, it's all grants, mostly
There's nothing
grants.
on there.
Talk to Jesse.
Oh, yeah,
We're
right.
not about it.
Yeah.
because we have the financial report, then I have one petition. To move telephone pole, so I would do the petition, and if we could, then I would do this.
There's a on the agenda, it says executive session, but we
It's almost all grants and a couple of other things.
You know, there's a handful of other things at the end.
You guys, grants should take less than 5 minutes. We're giving you money.
Well, there's a shitload of them that are less than 50,000.
All right, if we were wrapping business, I gotta take care of some domestic business.
Yeah.
You're like, where is this guy?
You coming back down?
Like I said, I'm gonna try to get there first, but I'll probably have to zoom in. I'm assuming she's gonna get there and tell me she's out, run out the door and say.
And so we can vote to close this meeting.
Yeah.
Mr.
I don't think I have any committee members, but I make a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
All right. Thank you.
Procedurally.